Okay, and welcome to the next episode of Environmental Answers. Today it's me and Maddie. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you all that the Environmental Answers podcast is here to answer any environmental questions you have. So you can shoot us an email at askadvance.org and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest today, Maddie Shiff. Hi, Maddie. How's it going?
Hi, Tiana. It's great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted us to hop into was just to give us a little bit about your background and like what brought you into the environmental industry in this space that you are currently occupying.
Absolutely. So if we rewind it back, when I was an undergrad in college, I was studying global public health. And I started to look at how sustainability and public health were related. That started to really pique my interest. And so coming out of college, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I got very lucky to stumble upon a small but growing startup that was based in Richmond, Virginia, called Temper Pack, that was all about making the environmentally friendly alternative to styrofoam and disrupting that industry, the packaging industry. And so through that experience, I learned a lot about sustainability and really developed quite a professional passion for it, as well as a personal one. I was there for a number of years, and towards the end of my run there, I also decided to apply for a Master of Environmental Management at Duke University, which is where I met you and a lot of our other wonderful colleagues. And so at the same time that I started that degree, I also jumped and went over to Polycarbin, where I am now. And at Polycarbin, the work that Polycarbin did really attracted me because through working in the packaging space, I began to notice plastic all around us. And the problem of plastic, not only in packaging, but in everything that we do and everything we consume, became something that consumed me. And so that became a focus. And I wanted to really work in the plastic space and figure out what solutions were out there. So I joined Polycarbin and at the same time started the 2-year Del Mem program at Duke University. And now you and I are both graduates of that program, and I'm at Polycarbin working in the circular economy space for laboratory plastics specifically.
No, I really appreciate that. I mean, seeing where you said you started not necessarily in the environmental space, but kind of like shifted over into the space based on like your experience of getting into the startup world. I'm all about startups. You know, something that came to my head that I didn't say at the beginning was that this whole episode is around evidence-based sustainability. And so like for me, like hearing like how we can reduce our plastics is something that's like very critical for me to like understand more about. So could you actually bring us into your world a little bit more when it comes to like when you think of plastic, like why is it such an issue for you when it comes to the plastic being around? Like what's the problem with that?
Absolutely. Great question. So if we zoom out a little bit and look at the industries that I primarily work with, a lot of times the companies that we work with are typically biotech, pharma, healthcare, because those have a ton of laboratories that go through a ton of plastics. One of the reasons that we're focusing on plastics is because of the scale of the problem. So if you look at just biotech and healthcare, in an average year, just those industries produce 12 billion pounds of plastic waste alone. That's just those two industries. So it's clearly a huge problem. But getting to the root of your question was like, why is that a problem? Why is that concerning to us? So what we really want to do is look at what is plastic. And before I started to think about this more critically, it's something that I didn't give much thought to. But oftentimes it's lost that the plastic that's in our hands, on our desks, in our kitchens and homes and in laboratories, there you go, that's everywhere. All of that is just embodied fossil fuels. So every single piece of plastic that's everywhere there were fossil fuels that needed to be fracked and cracked, and that go through this very long resource intensive process to become the item that's in your hand. And I know I certainly didn't think about that connection on a daily basis until I started really studying this and working with polycarbon. And so because of this, when we look at the laboratory setting, which is where polycarbon works, the laboratory setting produces some of the most important innovation. We rely on the incredible work of scientists to produce incredible innovations in pharmaceuticals, in biotechnology. And we also work with a lot of companies that put out consumer packaged goods, things like that. Laboratories have an extremely important role. But because of the role that plastics play in laboratories, this essential role to research, laboratories are inherently dependent upon the fossil fuel industry. So if we look at that, that ties fossil fuel production to innovation. And what polycarbon wants to do is to decouple that reliance on the fossil fuel industry and make it so that the cost of innovation doesn't have to be the environment.
So like if I was a customer of yours coming to you today and I worked at like a laboratory, would it be like the pipettes, or what part of the plastic, what plastic material is it that you're helping us with?
Another great question. So we focus on non-hazardous rigid lab plastic streams. But we have a variety of material streams that we look at. So one item that is very commonly used in laboratories would be a pipette tip. And so these pipette tips come in tip boxes that are these bulky pieces of plastic. They're ubiquitous, they're everywhere, and they take up a ton of space. So this is usually one of the places where a lot of the scientists that we work with, this is where they start. So pipette tip boxes are a big item that we go after. We also work with labs on an individual basis to figure out what else from their workflows and their material streams can be recycled with us. So we look and see what sort of workflows they're going through in the laboratory. Are they using chemicals that are P-list chemicals or U-list chemicals? And would that disqualify those plastics from being recycled because they've been in contact with those? Are they using infectious material? Are they using non-infectious material? So we have a very involved quality team that gets up close and personal with these laboratories to figure out exactly, what can and can't be recycled from those labs. So rigid plastics are the main thing we go after. We've also expanded over the past few years into nitrile gloves of any color.
And gloves?
Yeah, those nitrile gloves.
Okay.
And it's funny that you just reacted to that, because I find that nitrile gloves in the lab are one of those things that people just wish they had a solution for. They're sort of like the plastic straw of the laboratory.
You just use it because people pull them, throw them away, pull them, throw them away.
Exactly. Exactly. They really stack up. And then we also do recycle PPE as well, polyolefin-based PPE. So think like hair nets and beard nets, shoe coverings, gowns, things like that. So we found ways to work with all of these materials. And one sort of important thing that we like to call out is that we're not brand specific. So it doesn't matter what brand of pipette tip box a scientist is using. We're not going to be picky. If it's a pipette tip box, we'll take it, whether it's our brand of consumables that we make or a competitor's brand. We're we want to take stewardship for the plastic that's out there, not just the plastic that's out there with our brand name on it.
Oh, that's really nice. So like it doesn't matter where the plastic come from. Polycarbon can come in and help essentially clean that up. So, I want to dive a little bit deeper into understanding like some of the trends you are currently seeing in your space as far as like how we are shifting to helping us be more resilient when it comes to like our environment. So is there like any top trends? I know you mentioned just recently like the gloves. I had not heard that, you guys were taking that. Those are like things that take up a lot of energy and space in a laboratory, but are there any other trends that is happening in your space?
Yes. So the short answer is yes. I think one thing that I've seen isn't necessarily a trend, but it is, I will call it a trend. It's a trend towards using sustainability jargon in a clearer way. And this is something that Polycarbin is really pushing. And, slowly we've seen other people jump onto this as well. Because I'll go off on a little bit of a tangent here. There's a big difference between circular recycling and downcycling. And to give the high level definition, when we call something circular, it's when you take an item and you recycle it into an item of equal or similar value. So for instance, you take a laboratory consumable and you are turning it into another laboratory consumable, whether that's the exact same kind or, you take a tip box and you turn it into a tube. As long as, it's similar value, it's preserving the integrity of that plastic. There's also downcycling, which in the grand scheme of the big sustainability puzzle we're solving, there's certainly room for downcycling as well. But downcycling would be taking an item like a pipette tip box and recycling it into something of lesser value. So for instance, that could be a piece of plastic lumber or a park bench. And that certainly serves its purpose. It keeps the plastic out of the landfill for one more rotation. But going back to what I mentioned before about the decoupling of the fossil fuel industry and research, when you downcycle something into an item of lesser value, like a park bench, that does nothing to reduce a scientist's need to go purchase more product that uses virgin resin. So it does nothing to supplant the need for new virgin resin in research. And if we want to make it so that scientists aren't reliant on the fossil fuel industry for every new piece of plastic, we need to be able to produce the consumables that scientists use without that reliance on the fossil fuel industry.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense, and that's really clear. I really appreciate 2 points. I did want to circle back to your point about making sustainability jargon clearer. I think like, something that you do really well, Maddie, is communicating it, like breaking it down so that, maybe if you don't have the background to be able to like pull people into the space. And so like, what is the trend that like, I shouldn't use the word trend, but what is the thought behind like the importance of shifting from making sustainability jargon so like almost like you have to have a science background to understand it, to then making it so it's accessible to more like everyone?
Yeah. So I really resonate on this point with what Reba said a few weeks back, actually. She was talking about how a lot of sustainability and climate work has been very shame-based. And shame-based efforts are really no way to move a movement forward. And so I've found that when people are confused about something or when they don't fully understand a concept, they're likely to either completely disengage and avoid the topic or get frustrated because they don't understand and you're not communicating as well as you should be. So one of the reasons why it is really important to me to make sure that everything is explained very clearly is because, I wasn't trained as a scientist. I have learned so much about this industry through working in it for many years, and through the wisdom and insights of my colleagues at Polycarbin, at Temper Pack, and in the community as well, and all my colleagues at Duke as well. So I've learned a whole lot about that, but I've found that I know I'm way more likely to get involved and take action on anything when I understand it more fully and I feel welcomed into it. And so I think making sure that sustainability doesn't feel like something that's so far in the distance and so hard to engage with is critical in making people understand that, this is in their hands, literally.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's their environment, right? Like we're all in the environment, and it's something that's like what I admire about like the work that you're doing specifically is like, I know like if you work in the medical industry, you might like separate it out like, oh, okay, I work in medical, it's not environmental, but like it is, it's all like connected. It's our physical space, both outside, but inside is all connected. So that shift that you're talking about is like definitely a paradigm that we really are hopping on or supporting at Environmental Answers, because the goal is to like shift us towards seeing that it's a part of everything that we're doing. It's a part of the research that, that are happening in the laboratories that are breaking through and finding cures to cancer or other things that are important to our physical health. It's all connected from the choices that we're making with the materials that we're using, like in the laboratory. So I really appreciate that. But bringing it back to like, you totally agree. Yeah. No, bringing it back to like understanding how like environmental related matters fit into business, you all being a startup or a business, it's important for you to be able to essentially provide profit for you all to be able to grow, right? And so something that I have seen is that when people think of like environmental related things, they think of it like not being profitable. Something that I can tell is that there must be a lot of opportunity for us to like lean in and seeing that there is a pathway to profitability as we make these shifts. Is this something that you guys are finding true at Polycarbin?
Yeah, so it's funny. There is really that assumption out there that if something has to do with sustainability, it's got to be really expensive. Right. And there's almost this preconceived notion that it just has to be expensive. And luckily, there are some really logical solutions, like the work that Polycarbin does, that make sense financially and environmentally. And, just from being in this space, I'm based in New York City, and we had New York Climate Week back in September. And I got the chance to attend a few events in person and hear from all these different startup founders and folks who are in the sustainability space and the startup space. And it's really, really inspiring to see everything that's out there and all the opportunities that are out there. And I'll say that I know there can be some resistance by different administrations to environmental efforts. And, that's no secret. But I'll also say that the rest of the world is moving forward with environmental progress and sustainability progress and climate goals. And so while there may be concern in the United States in the near term about what environmental solutions at a federal level could look like, there is also a lot of global momentum that is not slowing down just because America thinks one way. So I have to say the combination of working with customers who are outside of the United States and seeing that their momentum has not slowed down, and working with and seeing the motivation behind sustainability startup founders through New York Climate Week and through different circles that I'm a part of, that all has really shown how much opportunity there is. And I think all it takes is really some of our customers who are interested in sustainability but nervous about pricing. It really just takes a conversation for them to understand, the value that these sort of sustainable solutions can present, and what they'd be gaining rather than just focusing on the fear of a potential high price tag.
Oh, no, I really appreciate you breaking that down, because I know that, like, you know, I've experienced where people just hear like environmental, like, it's very costly, it's going to be a big headache, do we have to do it this way? And understanding that there's opportunities to do it where it can lead to increase in revenue or increase in opportunity for engaging with our spaces better. That's what I'm hearing. And, it's awesome that you got to go to New York Climate Week and see some of these leaders, and knowing that, during any season of period, as long as we lean in and work together, we will make progress. So just keeping that like momentum going in community, keeping it local, allowing people to engage with their resources from a place of understanding and not fear is important. So I think that, as you continue to do your work and we continue to do our work, we will see progress no matter what. So I really appreciate you like talking to us about like the global action. And this is just like more of an opportunity for like some personal reflection. I think for me, being in the environmental space, I've actually, like, for me, I didn't say this on the first episode, but I started in this space in 2009. I did like an AmeriCorps program. So doing the Maryland Conservation Corps, I've seen since then to now, like I've seen so many shifts when it comes to environmental, and now having my own like startup, I realized that there is a lot of opportunity for us to shift and have profitability in this space. So anyway, looking ahead, I was wondering, what are like some of your goals as far as like what is that you want to accomplish, whether in your role or more in the environmental space? Are there any things that you are leading towards or goals that you're trying to accomplish maybe in this year or in the next 5 years, however you want to look at that question?
Yeah. Oh man, how to choose. Lots of goals. I think, if we're thinking in the nearer term, I think continuing to have conversations like this and spread the word with other sustainability advocates, but also the ability to get in person, face to face with end users, scientists, laboratory managers, people like that who are interested in this but might not know what their path forward looks like. I would love to get in front of these folks and have conversations with them. As we move away from the years of the pandemic, in person has definitely become more and more common and regular. And I just want to keep increasing that, because I think that oftentimes it can be easy to look at sustainability as something you want to do in the future, but it doesn't fit in with your workflow today, or it doesn't fit in with your goals for this month. But really, it is a lot of these sustainability-driven processes can be worked in so seamlessly to normal routines in laboratories and out of laboratories that sometimes just getting in person gives that extra push. So I want to get in person with a lot of folks this year. And then also, I think staying motivated and positive, sort of regardless of what's going on around you, or I'll say around me, is a big goal of mine. I want to be able to continue to be a driving force, whether or not the political atmosphere lends itself to a ton of governmental support. I think that there are tremendous environmental communities out there who are very excited about sustainability work and very ready to give time and effort and dedication to all these different environmental causes. So to really focus in and find steady motivation and positivity throughout the year.
No, I appreciate you sharing some of your goals. I think that,
Yeah.
those are both, one, accessible, and we can definitely help with getting you all in front of more audiences. Hopefully this video will uplift some voices to be able to come and reach out to you. What's the best way to keep in contact with you?
Absolutely. LinkedIn is probably the best. My LinkedIn is Maddie Shiff, Maddelaine. That A is a little tricky sometimes. And that's probably the easiest way to get in contact with me. Always happy to chat from there.
All right. And then this is more of like a simple question that I guess we could have started with. When you
Okay.
say the word sustainability, what does that mean to you? Because like I've heard different like definitions and it's important for us to get clear on what that actually means. So if you could like help us like conceptualize that, that'd be really helpful.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you're asking this because I think what I mentioned before about sustainability jargon and how there's this push to use it properly now. I'm really glad we're talking about this because I think people throw out the words sustainability and circular economy and things like that, but I don't want them to lose their power. So when I think of sustainability, I think of the ability to have everything that you need to function properly in the present day without sacrificing the needs of future you and future generations. So that could be, you could think of sustainability as something that's environmental. You can think of it in economic terms. There are a lot of different ways to think of sustainability. It doesn't necessarily have to be just an environmental term, but really it would be, do you have what you need to function properly today? And does that impact future generations' ability to function properly tomorrow or hundreds of years in the future?
Okay. No, that's helpful. No, like as far as like how to like conceptualize that. And then you also said circular economy. I know we both have an understanding about that, but could you also like break us in to what does that actually mean when you say that?
Absolutely. So when you think about how the economy works and how consumerism works, it's a model where it's called the take, make, waste model. Basically, you take an item or material to make an item, you make it, you use it, and then you toss it. So it's a very linear model, take, make, waste. What the circular economy does is it arches that model into more of a closed loop. So you have an item, you're using it, and then instead of just discarding it and going to buy something else or going to get something else, you figure out how to repurpose, reuse, revitalize that item into something so that it continues on and has a second life. It's taking the outputs of the take, make, and waste model and using them as inputs in a way that doesn't just relegate them to landfill or incinerator. It continues their life, elongates their life, and elongates those loops of use.
No, that's really helpful. I really appreciate like having you on today. I did have like a bonus question. This is more of a selfish question because I know that you just got back from a trip to New Zealand and I really
did.
wanted to share some of the things that you learned when you were out there. I know when we talked a little bit briefly yesterday, you were giving me some insights. I had some questions about like what was it like going to New Zealand and like what were some of the things that you enjoyed while you were there?
Well, I have to say, going to New Zealand in the winter is wonderful because it is their summer. So days were long, weather was gorgeous. The sun would rise at like 5:30. It would set at like 9:45. We had these gorgeous long days, tons of hiking, kayaking. For someone who likes to be outside, it was wonderful. Also, for someone who's used to, the air of New York City, some fresh New Zealand air was wonderful. And I also did learn a lot about conservation efforts there. And so for folks who are interested in sustainability and conservation, it is a fascinating place. We learned about a lot of the birds. And fun fact, New Zealand developed as a place without any land mammals. I think technically there were 2 or 3 species of bat that are native to New Zealand, but no other land mammals. And so all the land mammals you see were brought over on ships by Europeans, but it developed as a space where it was ruled by birds. So there were these massive birds of all different types, really in the ostrich family, and it's a really, really fascinating place. I went to a bird sanctuary and we learned about conservation efforts for the kiwi birds, which is what New Zealand's famous for. And right now they're being hunted by possums. Their eggs are being eaten by possums. So they're, possums were brought over by Europeans, and now there were 80 million possums. They've really knocked it down a bit. So lots of interesting conservation stories on the New Zealand front. And I highly encourage anyone who's interested to look it up and do a little research. It's a very fascinating place.
I think something that you shared also was the fact that, like, for perspective's sake, how many people like actually live in New Zealand versus the like population at its height was like,
it's about 5 million people that live in New Zealand. They have about 20 million sheep. And then at the height of the possum invasion, there were 80 million possums. So 80 million possums to 5 million people. I think now it's closer to 40 million possums.
that's still a lot of possums.
Still a lot of possums per person. So they're working on getting that number down.
Yeah, getting that population down. Yeah. So
yeah.
Again, for anyone who has like questions or concerns regarding like the circular economy specifically, reach out to Maddie. You said LinkedIn is the best place. LinkedIn. Yep. Okay. And then could you spell your name for us like one more time, how you did nicely earlier?
Absolutely. MADELAINE space SHIFF. There's no C in Shiff.
There is no C.
A mistake a lot of people make.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But so it goes. But yeah, if you want to talk about the circular economy, New Zealand, you know who to reach out to.
I really, really enjoyed having you on today's episode of Environmental Answers. You can always reach out to us if you have any questions as well. Like I said earlier, I'm learning how to use this platform, but you can send us a message at askenvans.org. And we will be on again February 5th with an episode talking specifically about zero waste in kitchen. So that'll be nice. We'll have a chef that's going to come on and talk to us about that. And so that's it for today. I'm going to end the live stream now. And I really appreciate those who got to spend some time with us live. Thanks, Maddie.
Thanks, Tiana. Thanks so much. Bye.